All right, we are live. All beings considered. Larrea, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's been a while since I've gotten to hang out with you.
Yes, it's been a while. Well, welcome back. For anybody who doesn't know, this is All Being Considered. We consider all beings. We usually talk to scientific people and veterinarians and such. And Larrea, you're kind of a veteran. Well, almost a vet. What's your deal?
Yes, I'm almost a veterinarian. I'll be one officially in 6 months. I take my boards next week, so we are inching there slowly. But before vet school, I was a wildlife biologist, and have always been interested in considering all beings.
I'm so excited to. I love that. I can't believe it's already 6 months away. That's incredible. We're gonna have a new veterinarian, a new vegan vet.
Yes.
We need more of those. A new animal activist veterinarian. We need more of those.
We do. It's so funny. I'm at this stage where, I'm like doing like internships and preceptorships and meeting all sorts of new people, or every time I do a new clinical rotation, the question is, when you meet someone new, whether they're a fellow student or a faculty or an intern or a resident, they're like, what do you want to do? And I'll tell people like, oh, well, I became a vet to further my animal advocacy, and I want to do sanctuary medicine and conservation medicine. And people just kind of look a little confused. So sometimes when I don't want to get all the way into it, I'll say, oh, want to be a shelter vet, but it's so much more than that. Like, I want to be a vet for all the animals and use being a vet for good.
Be a vet. How about there's that? Be a vet for good. Well, isn't that? I think that's I want to be a vet for good. I want to help animals. I think most veterinarians say they're going to get into that reason. Well, today we've got a veterinarian who's been a veterinarian for a while. Today on All Beings Considered, we're going to be joined by a remarkable guest whose career embodies what it means to live a life of service and compassion. Dr. Judith Samson-French. I always want to say DVM at the end, but Crystal says if I say DVM, I sound stupid. But DVM MSc has spent more than 30 years helping over 100,000 animals live healthier, happier lives. She founded and led Banded Peak Veterinary Hospital for 2 decades, and her innovative programs like Dogs with No Names and Pearls 365 have transformed the way communities, especially indigenous communities, approach animal welfare with respect, dignity, and creativity. Her work spans species and disciplines, from pioneering ratite health management for ostriches and emus to developing bee health solutions and eco-conscious afterlife care through Gentle Waters Pet Memorial. Sorry, it's a longer bio than I'm used to reading. Dr. Samson.
She's done a lot of amazing things.
I know. I'm really excited to talk with her. Dr. Samson-French's partnerships have reached global icons, including Dr. Jane Goodall, R.I.P., PetSmart Charities, and Jann Arden, reflecting a lifetime devoted to bridging science, empathy, and action. With degrees from the University of Guelph, the University of Alberta, and McGill University, Dr. Samson-French brings not just medical expertise, but a visionary belief that veterinary care must be democratized, that every guardian, no matter their background or income, deserves access to the knowledge and tools to make the best choices for their animals. So let's welcome this trailblazer, Dr. Judith Samson-French. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Welcome, Doctor. Doctor's in the house. Welcome so much. Welcome.
Hey.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is amazing. And it's funny, when you were reading my bio, I also have a bachelor's of science, but I've always put it in the background because I've got, oh my God, I'm so overeducated for the work I do. So I just delete my bachelor's from McGill University.
She's got more degrees than a thermometer over here.
It's like, oh my God, it's so overeducated for what I'm doing. It's like drop some degrees here. So, but anyway. Thank you so
Well,
much for having me.
it's important to get, that when you're educated, you have I think, well-rounded, right? You get a couple degrees, you start thinking about things differently. People say they get these degrees, they don't use them, but I think I use my degrees every day, even though it's not obvious that I'm doing it, but I think it's important to,
Totally.
yeah, even if we're not going to list them for,
It's an
tell
embarrassment.
everybody.
At times it's embarrassing.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like you're bragging, right?
Yeah, leave it aside.
Well, your bio reads like a journey through nearly every corner of animal care, like community outreach and wildlife management, bee health, sustainable memorials. Where do you want to start, Larrea?
Well, I kind of want to start at the beginning, even as far back as your bachelor's degree, if you want. Listening to your bio and learning more about you is really inspiring to me, and I see a lot of similarities between at least your story on paper and my story on paper, with some backgrounds in wildlife and finding our way to vet med. So yeah, I want to start at the beginning and learn more about your journey and how you ended up where you are doing what you're doing, and why you think you're overeducated for what you're doing, because I'm sure that's not true.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Larry. It's actually, I started exactly the same way as you did. My first was not to be a veterinarian. That was not what I wanted to be. So I started at McGill in wildlife biology and agriculture. And then I realized, oh God, it's going to be so hard to find a job in that field. Canada was cutting off all the jobs. I figured, I've got to beeline somewhere else. And then while I was at McGill, a professor approached me and told me about some work on bighorn sheep, the lungworm pneumonia complex in bighorn sheep in the Rockies. And the work was done in Colorado and was done in the Canadian Rockies here. So at that age, when you're 21, it's like, let's do something fun. So veterinary medicine was not on my radar at all. So then did my master's. And then again, I have the same thought, okay, I got to get serious. I'm not going to be able to get good work doing this. So then it's like, oh, fine, I'll become a vet. But probably as a result of that, that was not my first intention. And I love veterinary medicine. But when I started to work, when I graduated and I worked in an emergency clinic, I figured they're all crazy. Like, I can't do this. Like, I won't even last 5 years. Like, this is a crazy world. So that's why I ended up going one way and go the other way. And in the end, I ended up owning a vet hospital for almost 25 years, which was not the intent. I figured after 5 years, I'll be out of this profession. Like, this is crazy. They don't even have coffee breaks. You work emergency, there's not even a coffee break. But
That's what the IV is for. You got to get a caffeine IV.
Well, I'm back from the days where we had vodka in our emergency kits, because if the pets got ethylene glycol poisoning, they're like antifreeze, we had vodka. So that was always handy at midnight. For the pets, for the vets at that point.
Palliative care.
Yeah, totally. So half of the students, as you know, go into veterinary medicine because that was a lifelong dream from the beginning. And to me, it was a default position. After doing 2 degrees, it's like, fine, I'll do the reasonable things. I really enjoyed, like you, working with wildlife. And I think that's why along the way, like I went to Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, where they made the movie Jaws, and Cape Cod to learn about aquatic veterinary medicine at the Bamfield Marine Station. I was just trying to find the niche that I could develop my potential to the most. And I just went here and I went there, and it was all fun. At the end of the day, it was all fun, and I'm glad I didn't stick to like 30 years of small animal practice. I did large animal, I did zoo medicine, rat tight. Ostriches. Ostriches were big in the 90s. It was very well paid. Everybody was afraid. All the veterinarians were afraid to do the work because we don't know much about these birds. I jumped right in, took $1 million in liability insurance. It's like, let's do it. And it was like one of the best moves ever. And these birds were always sick because we didn't know that when we brought them in. But if a farmer was building a fence, he had a box of nails, 12 ostriches would come in and eat all the nails. So it's like, line up the birds in surgery. So now I've got 12 birds in surgery. So I made really good money right at the beginning.
Wow.
Which
Ostrich.
was
That sweet
doing
ostrich money.
I know. I just decided I'm going to jump in. 3 birds were worth $75,000. I mean, talk about money like we're talking 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So that was just a serendipity move. And to me, certainly the lesson is that don't stay in your comfort zone. Like my comfort zone, I said, oh no, these birds are dangerous. And I was 7 months pregnant. I mean, I had a big belly and I'm still walking around these birds kicking. Nothing bad happened. I've never got sued. All the surgeries worked out. So to me, it's like push beyond your comfort zone all the time. So since that worked out so well, I continued. And probably the most meaningful work for me was to work with reserve dogs. And in Canada, we say reserve, and I guess in the US, you say reservation. So I call them like res dogs. And I created a vet hospital because I made enough money through working with ostriches, which was just totally serendipity. But again, you have to give back to the community. And my vet hospital is actually across a highway from a big First Nation community or reserve. And these dogs kept showing up at my clinic all the time, and they cared for their dogs. They just didn't have the resources, they didn't have the money, they didn't have the way to communicate with us what was wrong. Not only that they spoke Cree, but they just didn't interact with our world. But every time they came in, it's like I would roll my eyes. It's like, what's the name of this dog? And it's like, it has no name. It's like, oh, another dog with no name. So now I know it's going to cost me like $5,000. I'll have to amputate a leg. I'll have to remove an eyeball, and no one's paying the bill. So so in my own vet hospital, that was fantastic because then it forced me to innovate, and I started to work with contraceptive implants because I realized there's too many dogs coming in my clinics. It's costing me too much money. So went back upstream and started to put contraceptive implants instead of spaying the dogs. And that has been like a game changer. So again, like from one to the next, you just keep pushing and you keep pushing, and there's a new path opening every time. So it's been great, but probably because I've never done just vet medicine.
Yeah, I would love to know more. I was just going to say, I'd love to learn more about that because that's definitely not the model here. You know, we're very much still pushing high volume spay neuter, and there are a lot of organizations, maybe not a lot, but there are a select number of organizations that work on our indigenous nations, especially in Arizona and Utah and New Mexico.
Right.
Because the same thing, they're veterinary deserts. It's not that people don't care, it's that they don't have access to the care. Where I'm from in northern Arizona, southern Utah, there's pretty much no care from southern Utah to the Grand Canyon, essentially. And there's a lot of people who really want that care. And the solution has been high volume spay neuter and doing, a weekend clinic or something. So I'd love to know about the strategy of contraceptive implants, because it's in school, it's been taught as more of something theoretical. And I know that, there are some companies that there's a big prize and grant competition to develop innovative population control strategies. And just want to hear more about your success with that. And
it was phenomenal. And actually, it's used in other places. And it's funny because the success has been exported. Instead of using it at home, it's been exported in the Galapagos Islands and other places where it's so hard. So what happened is I did host one spay neuter clinics in my vet hospital by one of the local rescue groups. And I sure, let's do it. And then I figure this is the most insane thing I've ever seen and will ever do in my life, and will never do it again. I mean, these dogs came from the reserve. They're running outside all day long. We bring them inside. We put them in kennels. They're all vomiting. They all have diarrhea. They're rolling mad because they're in a kennel. They've never been with anything above their head. We're keeping them for 24 hours. You go to surgery. You kind of clean up all the diarrhea and the vomit. I figure, oh my God, this is such a torture. And then these animals have not been preconditioned for surgery. They're skinny, they're full of worms, and we're going in and opening them up. And I figure, this is madness. There's no way I can participate in this again. It was not in the best interest of the animals. Plus, what I realized dealing with the reserve dogs is that on average, they live only 3 to 5 years. Their lifespan is really short. They get hit by cars, they get attacked by other dogs, they're malnourished. So I'm spaying a dog that may live only another year. That was a lot of effort for a dog that will live 1 year. But you still avoid 8 puppies. So in the meantime, I had a girlfriend, because I worked in zoos, I had a girlfriend that worked in the Calgary Zoo, and she told me, well, like in the giraffes and the elephants and wolves, we're using contraceptive implants. Let's go check that out. So totally winged it, totally decided, well, I'm going to buy a bunch of contraceptive implants. But I got the information from the zoos. Like I went through all the North American zoos, what they've been doing for implants, and it's a Larrea and implants that we use often in ferrets. So I figured, and we're going to use it in females instead of in male dogs. And I had the support. The Alliance for Contraception of Cats and Dogs heard about what I was doing, so they were following me. I was the most regulated group in Canada. I had to report to the emergency drug release. I had to microchip everything. Spay neuter groups could come and go. And for me, like I was so regulated, like all eyes were on us. And then I did proof of concept. It cost me quite a bit of money because I did all of that on my own penny. And when you go, and what worked well in all this is when you're dealing with a different community, like for First Nation people to say, I'm going to grab your dog, I'm going to bring it inside, I'm going to cut it open, I'm going to take some organs out, I'll patch it together, and I'll bring it back to you. That's not their culture. Like, you're not going to chop my dog in pieces. Like, they could not understand. But then I knock on the door and I say, hey, I have a bag of 40-pound bag of dog food. Would you like it? And I have a dewormer for your dog as well. And by the way, I also have a contraceptive implant, and that will throw her out of heat for another year. So you won't have puppies around. Mm-hmm. So the response was 100%. They knew nothing about contraceptive implants, but the approach that we took was 100%. And we took, and from reserve to reserve, so in Labrador, which is like in Newfoundland above Maine, like the RCMP would call me and say, hey, we have dog attacks on kids everywhere. Like, can you reduce this? And within 6 months, we'll take every female out of reproduction. Don't worry about the males. We'll take every female out of reproduction. Everything calms down because it's a female in heat that get all the males agitated, and that's where all the fight. So it worked really great, but then it cost me about $100,000, like to put all of this and buying everything. And I did high volume. So I ended up in China, in Shanghai for fun, like for 5 days with some friends. And I bought some pearls and I brought them back and I just sold them from my clinic. And then they all sold. It's like, okay, a few $1,000s. So I flew back and then I bought more pearls. And then I sold some more. So then I headed to La Jolla, California, and I took my course to be a gemologist. So I knew what I was selling. And so this company of pearls, we sold pearls in so many pet stores and everything to put money toward the project. And then PetSmart's charity came on board because now we had proof of concept. It's hard to go and say, hey, I'm going to try these implants. Like, do you want to finance me? Like, hell no. We don't know. But after 2 or 3 years, I had full proof of concept. So then PetSmart Charity came in with $250,000 and the Ministry of Long-Term Health in Ontario, like we ended up with huge projects. So once you open the path, just keep going, like something good happens. That's what has been fun. But to me, the contraceptive implants works well in a context when a dog is not owned or loosely owned, that we know the lifetime is going to be short. Once a dog,
free roaming dogs.
Yeah, free roaming, or I had First Nation people, and I put 5 implants in a dog. It's like, hey, you need to get that dog spayed now. Like, this dog is going to live a long life. I shouldn't do an implant every year, though in Australia and New Zealand, they use implants a lot and won't even spay. Like, they're just going from implant to implant. But to me, it's like, once I've put 2 implants in a dog, I've shut that dog down for 18 months. People bond to the dog because now they don't have a bunch of puppies under the deck and a bunch of male dogs coming in. They've bonded to the female. And now they're ready. They've built a trusting relationship and said, sure, we'll get her spayed now, because everything, the trust is there, and they see how beautiful this dog is without having a litter of puppy all the time around. So to me, if a dog is going to live a long life, it should get spayed. But the street dogs or the res dogs that are not going to have a long life, why put them through a surgery when a contraceptive implant is going to do the trick? So that was a fun thing.
Interesting to me, because the barrier seems to be commonly the owner, the guardian, or whomever, the person who's in charge of the dog. And you said, that's just not their culture to allow someone to cut open the dog and take an organ out or do whatever needs to get done to control the population. But we see this in rural America all the time, where especially, PETA does a lot of work where they go out into rural South and they bring their their clinic on wheels, and they do something similar where they say, here's some dog food, here's some cat food, whatever. You've got this dog chained up outside. I tell you what, we'll give you a free little dog house. We'll give you a free, anything to let us fix the animal, and people will still say no because they've got this mind barrier against.
Yeah,
so maybe,
and if you did an implant, it's like, hey, I'm going to give your dog a rabies vaccine, I'm going to give your dog a parvo vaccine, and I'm going to give an implant. All of that will take 1 minute. And take your phone, take a video, and watch us. And then they do. And then they send it to their neighbor. It's like, hey, look what just happened to my dog. That took 1 minute, and then I don't have a problem. So then the next neighbor wants it, and the next and the next. So I think the contraceptive implant is a nice segue into going into. And I think also, to me, if I was a person and, a group comes over and say, hey, we'll take your dog away from you, we'll go spay it. I have no relationship with who's doing this, and we'll return your dog tomorrow or the next day. No. No, I don't know. And in a lot of rescue groups in here, they've actually stolen the dogs. And then they never saw their dog again. So why would they allow that? Whereas I'm right in front of them. Let's do it. The kids, we have a treasure box for the kids. Pick some presents out of my treasure box to keep them busy while I'm doing this. And you got t-shirts and caps. We had all sorts of donations. And then we're doing the whole work, feed the dog, and then move on to the next one. And then they would escort us. They say, well, come with me. My uncle and my brother, and we all have dogs. And then they drive you to all these houses. And it worked fabulous. It was just, and that's why we worked on, I did all across Canada. We worked on reserves all across Canada. And the other thing that I've learned, though, as well, is when you work in these communities, if you do not have a dog champion in that community, don't go there. Because there's nobody to keep going afterwards, because you can only be there for, let's say, a week or 3 days. But you want to get reports, what's happening, what does it look like. If there's no one in that community to continue the work, you're wasting your time. So if there's no dog champion, we're not going there. If there's a great dog champion, you see them already on Facebook, they're looking for help, then that's where we're going to be super successful, if there's already a dog champion in that community.
I feel like that reflects kind of current conservation models of it has to be community driven. And we mentioned Jane Goodall earlier, but that's like so much of what her work was focused on is, yes, it was, her traveling and speaking and giving lectures, but so much of what she was doing was community based, and luckily is a model that has been adopted more and more by conservation, is trying to find ways to engage the community rather than penalize people for not following conservation related policy or whatever. And it's nice to see that also translating into other types of animal management, for lack of a better term. I also like what you were saying about, just about it being a great segue or like a gateway to long-term sterilization. It would just be a great thing, like if we could just give all the female dogs a Deslorelin implant, like it would just knock the population down for that year. And I feel like we would see people would see the benefit for them.
Exactly. And I think that's where we miss the boat when we do like spay neuter clinics on a reserve. And I'm asking, why are you doing the males? Like they're not the problem. I mean, every female you shut down, every uterus we shut down, that's 8 puppies that are not born right off. But you do a male, what have you achieved? There's 100 males on the reserve. So you've neutered 30. You've changed nothing. Like what was your promise to these people? What did you tell them? That you're just doing a spay neuter clinic, or did you say you're doing population management? Because you cannot do population management if you're doing like 30 males and 30 females. But if there's 50 females, I'm going in, I'm doing all 50 females. The males, and of course the First Nation people, some of them don't even know what sex, the dog is. They've got dogs everywhere, and they bring them in. So to me, it's managing expectation. It's like, hey, we're focused on the females, but thank you. Your dog is still getting a rabies vaccine. It's going to get parvo vaccine. It's going to get a dewormer. We'll still give you some food. And then next year, I'd like to see your dog for neutering. So because then they see the impact in 6 months, like the RSCMP said, our CMPs are like police said, oh my God, we're not called anymore for dog bites anymore. So And usually the males that show up for these clinics are the nice males. The badass males that weigh like 60 pounds, they're still roaming. Nobody can catch them.
No one trapped those guys. That makes
No.
perfect sense, right? Yeah,
It's like, why are
the
we doing
problem males, they're
chihuahuas?
still out in the wild.
We're doing chihuahuas. I can't even breed the females. We're doing all these little dogs. I can't breed any females. And all the
Yeah.
badass are still all out there. So to me, in that context, so we have, and the other observation that was so obvious that the spay neuter clinics have missed, when you worked, and it could be the same in Utah. So during the winter time, the dogs here don't have access to much food on First Nation community unless they're fed. So they've got to go and scrape frozen food at the dump and all of that. So when they give birth in the winter time, the survival of the litter is really small, right? If they have 8 puppies, they can't even drink water. They have to eat snow. So when they give birth, like late, like in the winter, beginning of the summer, you'll probably have 1 or 2 puppies for each female. Now, if they give birth in the springtime, all of them are going to survive. They can all drink water. They can all. So when you do your spay neuter clinic in August and September, you're doing the mom, and then you're doing like 8 puppies, 4 of which are females. But if I do it in the springtime, I just have 1 female because everybody dies, and then she may have 1 puppy, and 50% of those will be either female or male. Because remember, I paid for everything at the beginning. I paid for every implant. So I really paid attention to the numbers. So it's not only like what we're doing, but which time of the year are you doing it? When is it most beneficial? So certainly a spay neuter clinic in August, it's like we're spinning our wheels. We'll be right back to the same number. But if I do our VIN for us, the implants, it has to be done like May, June at the latest. Otherwise, we're wasting our time. So there's a small pocket to do it too.
That's fascinating. You know, one of the things that I think we're kind of touching on is this idea of democratization of veterinary care, and I feel like we're kind of circling that, and it's one of the things I really wanted to ask you about, what that meant practically and what that means to you, the democratization of veterinary care. Would you mind walking us through that a little bit?
Yeah, so through the care, working with res dog and street dogs and all of that, like obviously there's a big slice of the population that does not have access to vet care. And I mean, there are ways for us to make it accessible. So we've talked about different ways of making it accessible. But what I'm finding out now is probably through the corporate takeover and the introduction of the gold standard instead of the standard of care, even the average dog owner can't even afford. And I was talking to one person, and she said, every time I go to the vet, I'm wondering, is this a grocery bill or a paycheck that I have to save? So to me, that's what, like, we cannot continue on that trend. It should not, like, pet owners have anxiety attack every time they go to the vet, not whether the dog or the cat will get fixed. It's about, is this a grocery bill or is this a paycheck that I'm going to lose here? So to me, that's why we need to democratize access like it used to be. Like clients were always able to see veterinarians, and we always made it work, and it was part of a community. But to me, democratizing it, and I think as part of the trend now, because there's a big corporate takeover, we know there's a lack of transparency and all of that. My way of approaching this is things are not going to change in the short term from the veterinary profession. Like it's just, there's a movement and it's hard to change that for now. But the next movement that needs to happen is that pet owners, which is a legal term in veterinary medicine, or pet guardians or pet parents, they need to become high agency. That's how we're going to democratize it. They need to know. They need to be they need to speak for their best friend there. They need to have some knowledge of what's happening, that when we're suggesting tests, we're suggesting treatment. In the old days, like, sure, whatever, because vets only proposed what was supposed to be proposed because we were not protocolized. Before we were not full of protocols, now there is. So now to me, pet owners need to be high agency. That's the only way for now, for the next 10 years. I think the demographics will change, but for the next 10 years, we're stuck in the same pattern that we are. And to me, the democratization is going to happen, that pet owners or pet guardians are going to force us to level up on the vet side. And if I propose, like, I'm going to do all these tests, it's going to be, why are we doing all these tests? Which one should we use to, and which treatment will be better? Like, they need to be far more empowered. They cannot be passive.
Do you think the profession's ever going to be ready for that? All of these questions. I mean, you hear about this from doctors all the time, that human doctors, you hear this about, oh, these people are walking in and telling me what they've got. They've already diagnosed themselves. They've already got a prognosis. They've already done everything but write the prescription. They're coming in telling me what drugs they want to be on. Every time I talk to a human doctor, they're rather annoyed by this. It sounds like you're suggesting more of that.
Actually, I'm the other way around.
Okay.
I loved in my practice, there were a lot of, it was a high-end practice. There were a lot of CEOs of companies, and they came in, they knew nothing about veterinary medicine, but they came in with their dog, and it's like, Judith, just like a CEO would think. And we need to do this and this. We go this way. We're going to do this way. They had their tree of decision. I could talk to them, and they could make decision, and it was so much fun. Like dealing, so I love to deal with a pet owner or pet parent, pet guardian, whichever term, that comes in and said, hey, there's a problem with my dog. I know the resting rate is well over 30, and it's been like that for 24 hours. And the dude, drinking urination blood is all normal. Wow, thanks. This is fun. Yeah. As opposed to a pet guardian that comes in and says, oh, my dog ain't doing right. We call them the ADRs, ain't doing right. Well, okay, now I got to ask like 20 questions to get to. So actually, the more empowered they are, the more fun for me it is. And every time a client would come in, I would ask, hey, did you Google this? So probably at least half of them would say, well, hell yes. And I said, well, what do you think we should be doing? And they would tell me exactly. And I said, hey, there's some good stuff we're going to keep here. And then the other half would say, well, no, I came to see you. So hopefully you'll help me and not Dr. Google. So to me, if we just reframe what it is, and we're in the world of AI. We're all looking on AI. I
don't even see doctors anymore. I just use it. My doctor's ChatGPT at this point.
So, if doctors and veterinarians are going to say, hey, don't look up anything, you're coming to see the expert. We are not the expert in everything. We're not the expert in behavior, drugs. We're not the expert. And in so many things, we're no longer the expert because the field is way too big. So to me, I love when they come in and they say the heart rate is this, the respiration rate is this, and, the bowel movements are like this for 3 days, and the lameness is on this leg. And here are the videos. I videoed the 3 gaits for my dog. This is fun. This is what we should be thriving on. This is elevating the game for everyone. I'm excited with those clients as opposed to the other way. Then because we feel defensive. If we feel defensive, it's because we don't feel we're good enough. Yeah, just get good enough.
Yeah, that imposter syndrome, I suppose, but also just a degree of humility that someone like you might have that others in the field don't, right? Saying, this is fun. You've come in and given me some... I don't know. It seems like humility. And I think that's something in democratization of anything that's going to require a lot of that, right? That if you want to democratize anything, it requires a degree of humility from all parties concerned. What do you think is missing here? How do we, we get down to brass tacks, how do we democratize veterinary care and get to this?
Well, I don't think the veterinary profession has such low, it has a lot of inertia. That's always been the case. Veterinarians are not early adopters. For me, it's the opposite. I love to try contraceptive implants. I'm going to try everything, and the profession is slowing me down, but that's a minority. We learn to conform. We learn to go into defensive medicine if you do, and I was warned by my vet association, anything goes wrong with those contraceptive implants, we're coming for your license. Well, that's not inspiring for any veterinarian to say, hey, I'll try something new. My license is on the line every single day, but it forces you to practice really good medicine when you know they can come after you anytime. It's like you're practicing the best medicine. But to me, the democratizing is actually not for the vet profession. The inertia is so great. It takes so long to move anything. It's the pet owning population. They've got to show up and level up and learn. If you're gonna come and own a dog, and I hate own because it should be a reciprocity, we should be an exchange. It behooves you to learn a lot about your pet. If you're going to get a Bernese Mountain Dog, you should know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
If you're getting a Chihuahua, you should know what you're getting into and what other disease they're going to have. What are your budgets? Are you going to get pet insurance? How are you going to react when you have I had an emergency with my own dog, and it was interesting. My husband was a military pilot, so not at all versed in this, and my dog was going down, looked like it was bloating. My husband was just no idea. For me, it's okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what we're doing. And we move into action. And to me, that's what pet guardians need to be trained to do as well. Like, gone are the days you just call an emergency clinic or show up and say, go ahead, take my pet, unless you want to pay $20,000 plus. So I'm putting it on the pet owning population. And then the vets will meet you there. The vets are not taking the initiative, but they'll have to meet you there. And to me, that to have standard protocols for all, especially dogs, doesn't make sense. Like, what is a Chihuahua to a Great Dane? I mean, there's no other species, like Larrea, as a biologist, or like no other species that have so much variation, come to maturity and puberty and number of puppies. Like, there's so much variation with dogs. Well, there's too many protocols that have come into place, and they have a reason, but now they're hindering us from doing really good medicine. And we've come into the age of the gold standard. Okay. But that doesn't mean every pet guardian needs a gold standard. We can have standard of care, because otherwise we're going to have rescues really full of dogs if we're only aiming for gold. I mean, already there's so many people that don't want to adopt an older rescue because they know they can't afford it. Yeah. They know that's going to be the most expensive.
You've touched on a question from the audience, actually. Maybe we could talk about the standard of care for a second. We can define what that is, because I've heard it described a few times about this gold standard, this Cadillac type of medicine versus standard of care. And Antonio Diaz says affordability, double question mark. How can veterinary medicine be affordable for average people? And I don't know. One of the things you just mentioned to me stuck out, because my mother was a breeder. She had and over my lifetime she had several breeds of dogs that she was interested in, and she had stacks of books about each of these breeds. And I don't see people doing that anymore, and my mom didn't have crazy vet bills because she could take care of most stuff. Like, most things that happened, she could actually take care of herself. She never freaked out when something went wrong with a dog. Because she had these books that she had read about the breeds that she was caring for. But I don't think everyone's going to do that. What is the standard of care, gold standard? I don't think everyone knows what we're talking about when we say these things.
Yeah, so but it's exactly what it is you described briefly. Like, the gold standard is the Cadillac. So when you show up with specialists in the emergency clinic, they got to justify to say, hey, we're the best here, and we have all of this that we can do for your pet. Should your pet get all of this? No, I think at some point there's animal abuse when we keep, like injecting and pilling, and like, this is animal abuse. We don't need to do all this. The standard of care is, this is what we can do, and it's going to be considered acceptable. So, for example, there's a little bit of a problem with the mouth. I mean, you can go to a specialist and they're going to do an MRI and you're going to have a $3,000 bill, or we can do a dental x-ray and we're going to pick it up for $150. The standard of care is $150. We could do it like that. The gold standard, we took the best equipment, we used the best protocol to see the whole thing. So that's where, and some people will say, and that's what I ask my clients, like, what do you want here? And they said, I want everything done right away. I want the full gold standard. And then other client says, no way, can't afford it right now for whatever reason. What are my options? What is the best option? And what is plan B and plan C? That is still good standard.
Yeah, and
do we jump in? Go ahead.
Sorry. We're taught in school, we call that the spectrum of care.
Yes. Contextualize.
Exactly. And that you're supposed to offer the spectrum, and something that I'm struggling with currently as I am completing my emergency and ICU rotation in a teaching hospital, where the teaching hospital views itself as we're a university facility. We need to always be offering the gold standard. And while maybe that makes sense when people are referred there for specialty or neurology, they're there for like internal medicine, neurology, they've gone to other veterinarians and they've received a referral. Pursuing the gold standard is what they're there for. I feel very differently about the way the university could be practicing our emergency care, because I have seen it multiple times where we say, well, this is, our exam fee, and then this is the minimum that we're expecting this to cost. You need to pay this up front, and we're not providing a spectrum of care because we are an ivory tower institution. And I see it differently. I feel like as I'm in rural Washington at a public funded university paid for by taxpayer dollars, that we should be offering a spectrum of care emergency service so that we can actually provide that service to our community, who is not a high income community. We are taught these like concepts of like, when you get out of here, then you can offer your spectrum of care, but it's definitely not what we are having modeled for us in the university setting.
And it's interesting because to me, I mean, from different graduating world, you know, like I graduated last millennium compared to you. I mean, people went to university to get the gold standard at low cost because we're practicing on your pet. So that was the idea. The idea of standard of care and contextualized care or spectrum of care was there before. We lost track of that all of a sudden when we got the corporation, I think, taking over mostly all the specialists aspect of the profession. But to me, if I take the example of, the basic example that we all run into is bone cancer in a dog. I mean, bone cancer, the spectrum of care can be, we're going to do some really strong painkillers. And then, you know, like when we're not good quality of life, we're going to put them down. Or I can go to the gold standard and I'm going to refer you to an oncologist. And it's probably going to be $30,000 around here where they're going to remove the leg. You're going to start chemo and all of that. So that would be your gold standard. Do I agree with the gold standard? Probably not in my dog for certain cancers like bone cancer by the time we pick it up. And that's where some people are saying, well, this is animal abuse. Like, why not just let the dog be happy? Is it quality of care or quantity as well? Like, how long am I going to let my pet go through that? But this is where I think as a veterinarian, you have to be really strong in your belief as well. And to me, and if we don't have a relationship with clients, and that's a problem as well, is like if you're in corporate clinics and a client sees different vets every time, no one has time to figure out that client. Like when you've seen that client for 10 years, you know where you're going. But when they're seeing a different vet every time, there is no relationship being built. There is no trust going on in there. And that's a problem. And that's why, to me, pet guardians need to be so proactive. You're on your own when you go into the system. And it is up to you. Some of my clients would say, Judith, here's my dog. Let me know at the end of the day. Don't care about the bill. And then other clients will come in as I lost my job. Like, what can we do to just make this go away for now? I can't do anything else. And we should be open to all options. But of course, around production medicine, we have, and that's where it comes to ethical profit versus like kind of greed on the back of sick animals that can't speak for themselves. So I think the profession is losing track of that as well, that not always honoring where each pet guardian and each dog is at, because of course the gold standard may apply maybe to a 2-year-old dog doing lots of hiking and all of that, but I've got a 15-year-old dog. Do I need to do do I need to do a TPLO in a 15-year-old dog? I know it's a gold standard, but should I do a TPLO here? Hell no. Like, he's 15 years old. You know, it's not going to live like many more months. So to me, if the vet profession is not going to offer it, it's the clients, the pet owning population that has to get proactive on it. And I know not everybody wants to, but that's your loss if you're not.
You know, on that, you know, where I have seen a bit more of what you're talking about is actually in equine medicine. And there is a huge difference at our school's hospital between the price of hospitalizing an equine patient versus hospitalizing a small animal patient, which like kilogram to cost wise makes absolutely no sense. Like the amount of fluids a horse needs, the amount of medication a horse needs, the amount of space, like we can hospitalize so many more small animals in the space it takes. And it's because kind of what you're saying, Skye, the average horse guardian knows much more about a horse than the average dog or cat guardian. And they come with a vast amount of knowledge to the point where, as a future veterinarian who didn't grow up, I grew up around horses, but not in horse culture. You know, I had to learn all the horse words. I had to learn like how to speak about horses like people who have horses do, because they know so much and they are advocating And the main reason I asked, I was like, why does it cost so much more to hospitalize a cat than it does a horse? And it's because the horse owners simply won't pay it, because they're like, this is as much as we're going to pay. And which is wild to me, because I mean, horse owners take out millions of dollars, worth of insurance on their horses. So it's not because there isn't the money. I just feel like they're doing a better job of holding their portion of the industry in check. And I know that a lot of, I think equine vets statistically make, starting out, the lowest salaries of starting veterinarians. And it brought me to another question of, if the corporate takeover of vet med is as prominent in Canada as it is in the US, and also what your cost of veterinary school is, because I think here a lot of people chalk it up to, well, we pay, we take out $200,000 worth in loans. And as far as I'm aware, we're the main country that is burdened with that amount of loans. But yeah, if the prices are similar, and if so, then perhaps maybe that can't be the excuse why prices here are so high.
No, you're touching on great points. And that goes to the point you were making as well, Sky, there is like, if pet guardians start to know more, that's exactly what happens in the horse profession. They know. And then when you put a bandage, it's a Judith, you need to go counterclockwise on this bandage. We're not going to go clockwise. Like, they know exactly. So here's a population that has really owned it, whereas the pet owning has not owned it yet. So that's the difference that we see. And yes, it forces you to level up as a vet. As you said, as an equine vet, you need to know your stuff when you're dealing with equine owners. Like, you cannot just, so that's certainly, but at the same time, there's so many dislocations in the profession right now that it is so discouraging for people. But for me, this is when I was a mixed animal practitioner. I did a lot of equine. But then at one point, I'm doing these wild Mustangs. We have wild Mustangs here. And I'm castrating a wild Mustangs for $200. And I nearly lost my life and got kicked in the head for $200. And then I can go castrate a little Jack Russell for $500 in a nice surgery room, 8 minutes, totally safe.
Yeah.
I mean, you do the math, and then you do your safety check, and it's like, you know what? I'm done with large animals. I'm done with equine because it's so much easier. And I mean, equine, we're talking colics and everything. In Canada, we have the same issue. And I'm going to push back a little bit on that. I mean, I did graduate, like I said, the last millennium, and I owed student loans. I owned $28,000 back then. And the interest rates back then were 15 and 18%. So it was quite dramatic. So yes, there is a problem with, we don't make enough money compared to doctors. Like, going back, it's like going in human medicine, become an orthopedic surgeon, $1 million as opposed to for a dog. Definitely that's there. But the other thing as well, what I'm seeing the chain, and it comes with experience. You have to be willing to push your bubble a little bit. But to me, in the morning, I can slam 9 appointments, and then I'm going to jump into surgery, and I'll do 2 or 3 surgeries. Today, I mean, a vet will do like two surgeries in the whole morning. Well, we can't make a living. Like, the hospital can't exist, and as a veterinarian, I can't make a living with 2 surgeries in the morning. So what has happened that we can, with all the equipment, with everything we have, ultrasound, X-rays, we have so much more to diagnose. Why can't we do better work? Like, we're not leveraging our technicians enough. There's a disconnect that we're not seeing. And I see a lot of vets saying, well, I don't like to do dog space. That's not in my comfort zone. I don't like big dog space. But I mean, that's where the money is. It's $1,000 if you do a big dog space. But no, I don't like to do big dog space. So we have to embrace everything the profession has to offer, and like, go to the edge of your comfort zone and do those things, because by and large, it's going to go well. By and large, you're prepared.
I love what you're saying, and it inspires me, and I think it should inspire anybody, even people outside of the profession. But it's like, I have this reluctance to believe that how are we going to fight the overwhelming ignorance of the pet owning population? I mean, I'm still trying to get people to stop putting dogs on the end of chains in their yard or to get them to come inside during the winter. And you're telling me I got to get them to start looking up stuff with the AI to try to self-diagnose or even veterinarians to actually get out of their comfort zone when that's what they're trying to do this whole time is to get into this ivory tower. It's a high cost of entry. They've paid their money and their dues. They've worked really hard to get that piece of paper that says that they could be in that ivory tower and be a little more comfortable. I mean, not everyone's like you. They don't want to do things that are uncomfortable. And the ignorance of the pet owning population. I mean, I love what you're saying, but I find just even the prospect of it just seems so daunting, and it seems so daunting that it might be impossible. It might be impossible.
Well, my perspective, what I've seen in practice is, of course, during COVID, we were all so busy, like it was just crazy during COVID. And I was lucky in my practice, everybody kept their pets, like nobody returned their pets, like people got pets and they kept their pets. I think now we're starting to see the change that, there's not enough
They're getting
people
rid of them
coming.
now. All those COVID puppies are now ending up back in the shelters.
But people are not getting more dogs because they can't afford them anymore. And it's like,
that's true,
that
too.
Mastiff now, maybe I should buy a smaller dog because this Mastiff at $200, $300 a month for raw food. I can. So I think we're just right in the middle of it. Like the foundations are breaking, which is fun because that's our chance to do something new. But the foundations are breaking from the vet side, from the pet owning population. It's all breaking. And this is our chance to redesign something. But I'm seeing people that own 2 or 3 dogs and 2 cats. Now, every time one dies, they're not being replaced.
Yeah,
We're down to 1 dog now. So I think, which is going to be a challenge for the vet profession, because all of a sudden, now we will have far fewer patients because the cost is unaffordable. So I think it's happening. We're in that decade where it's really grinding.
Yeah, maybe like dogs aren't the status symbol they were a few years back too, because like this idea of this suburban ideal with 2.3 children, 1.5 dogs, these averages that people thought was that's a sign of success, right? I have a yard, I have a dog, I got 2 kids. That paradigm is changing dramatically. Totally.
And to your point, which is very astute, is what's the biggest pet owning cohort right now? It's the millennials. I mean, the boomers are gone. Like the boomers, like we can't make any more boomers. Like you were born 65 years ago.
I don't know. We haven't had a president younger than a boomer. That's not happened. So
that would be fun. I mean, we can't make any more boomers. The Gen X are there, but your biggest pet owning cohort is millennials, and they're bringing a change into pet ownership or pet guardianship. And to me, when I walk in an exam room, my first thought is this a boomer? Is this a Gen X? Is this a millennial or a Gen Z? Because I'm going to act totally differently. Yeah. I mean, you are a boomer. Would you like me to write all this down for you? But I'll never say that to a millennial. Millennial will be on their phone.
She's taking phones. Yeah, they're taking pictures of everything that you're doing. Write it down, but I'm just going to take a picture of it.
Yeah, and they're taping me at the same time. But what I'm saying is, again, we have a new population that is going into pet ownership or guardianship, and that's the millennials. And they bring a brand new characteristics about it. So I'm actually excited about that. I'm actually really
that
happy.
gives me hope, honestly, what you just said. That does give me hope. I'm glad I asked that question now. I felt I was being a little pessimistic, but I love your optimism, because if there's anything about the next generation that we can hope for is their treatment of animals. Isn't that what we're all hoping for, is that the treatment of animals changes with the next generation? We hope that they see individuals instead of commodities. We hope that they treat them as members of their moral community instead of just objects. I mean, hopefully millennials will do that. I mean, will they though? Every generation has let us down so far. So I love that optimism, and I'm going to try to share it.
Yeah, I know. I see that on the millennial side. I mean, it's almost like the dog is their child, And a lot of them are not aiming for 2 or 3 children. Like the dog is the child in there, and it's a whole relationship. And it's sometimes it's a little overboard. It's like, okay, we're good here. Like this is the
Yeah, it's
sixth
a little
time you've
much.
come in a week. Like we're good.
My fur baby.
That's right. So no, I think that so we're in the middle of all the big changes happening right now. Everybody has to adapt, but the slowest one to adapt will be the veterinarians. So to me, just because that's a profession, we thrive on conformism, like there's no biodiversity in the profession. You know, you have an exam, there's one question, you have 120 students, everybody has to have one answer. You cannot have 120 answers. Like we're trained to be just in one. So that creates inertia, that creates conformism. But the millennials, oh my God, they're going to be so much fun, like to change all of this.
And they're also
I hope so.
Yeah.
As a millennial in vet school with other millennials and some elder Gen Zs, I hope so, but I also think there's just still so much desire, just the way the system works of, you know, it's so hard to get into vet school. People are trained to just be grateful to be there. And so they don't want to speak up. I mean, I see it as the sentiment of our class. I know there's lots of people in my class who have really strong views on like breeding brachiocephalic breeds, you know, your French bulldogs, your English bulldogs, you know, those kinds of dogs, and, you know, have really open minds to viewing all animals, not just dogs and cats, of having moral worth, but they're still hesitant to say it out loud or say it too loud, where the establishment might hear.
They're still young, Larrea, and I just, you know, I used to work for Anheuser-Busch, and they have everything from the greatest generation. Back then when I was working for them, they had people who were from the greatest generation all the way down to, like, we didn't have Gen Z yet, but we had millennials, and they had us take courses on how to work with each of them. Yeah. And one of the things, and they showed what they hold important, and it was really funny. Like the greatest generation, they'd be like, "Well, I still care about good old Uncle Sam," and the other ones are like, "No, I care about the company," and the other ones are, "No, I only care about this guy I work with," and then the other one, you know, they don't care about the company at all. And so it feels like they're becoming more and more anti-establishment, and maybe when they're young and they're impressionable.
I do think that's true.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people who, you know, they'll see the way something's done and be like, can't wait to graduate and never do it like that again. And so I do think it's true, and that it is changing, and maybe it's the structure of school, because you know, ultimately you just have to pass, and the people who are passing you were brought up in a different structure, and so you just kind of have to play the game. But it seems like a lot of people are really motivated to make these changes and apply standards of care. And so I really do hope that they're able to do that when they graduate.
Yeah. And it's hard because you're fighting a programming right now, right? You're conditioned to go only one way. And it was interesting when I did my master's degree, I came out of McGill, and he says, "Oh my God, I got to stretch your mind. Like you're just so much in a box. We got to stretch it and pretend you have all the money and all the time in the world. What would you do for a project? Like we got to stretch your mind." So finally, after 3 years of doing my master's working on bighorn sheep in the mountains, my mind is all stretched out. And then I go to vet school and I had to put it all back in a box. And the box got smaller. At least my box was this big. Then I go back, it got stretched out. And then I go back to vet school, and then I had to work in this little box. And you have to work against that because it's conformity. And I feel it's like a game of whack-a-mole. Like if you pop up a little bit, it's like they whack you back down, and it's defensive medicine. But life is beige. If you stay there, life is beige. It's not going to be rewarding. People are not going to stay in the profession. Like you've got to go out of your bubble, like period. And that's what we're imposing on dogs as well. We're making the bubbles of dogs smaller and smaller too. Like you're on a leash, you know, you live in an apartment, like the dog's bubble is getting smaller, like paralleling our bubble. And we got to break those bubbles. So I think it's going to be forced upon us. Like the changes are so there right now. Embrace them.
What advice do you have for young veterinarians or animal advocates who want to make this systemic change and want to drive this change a little faster or support it as it's happening on its own?
I guess, to me, and it's what someone had told me before, just take the bull by the horns. It's like, oh, I'll try a little bit of this. I'll try a little bit of that. I'll dip my toe here. Just take the bull by the horns. Go for it, and make mistakes and speak up. And on Facebook and all of that, I've been eaten up alive a few times as well, and I still stand strong in what I believed on whatever wild horses calls or strychnine in wolves. You're gonna get beat up, but just take the bull by the horns. Like, life is really short and your career is really short. So we don't really have time to tiptoe and I'll try a little bit of this and I'll go back behind the group here. I won't talk too loud. Just go for it. Like, play to win. Not just to
be courageous. Yes. Inspiring courage is what we need, right?
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Jump in. Can I ask you, we're coming up on the hour, but I wanted to ask you about bees. I've been thinking about bees for the last 25 years so you've been involved in bee health. Could you just give us the Crip Notes version of what your involvement and what that means?
Novelty, never done in North America or in the world here, doing bee cubes where we put 20 hives inside a house and they come inside. And we're working with a couple universities where we're because we want to attract young beekeepers, because like most of the beekeepers are old white males. So we need the young population to get in. We have thermal imaging. We have everything is done remotely. We've got AI going in there to monitor the bee health. It's amazing. So it's a new project that we're doing. And at the end of the day, we say like the bees will save the world. But I think they will. It's not us that we don't need to save the bees. The bees will be saving us. And to go into that, it just shows how everything is interconnected. We have agriculture, we have cattle on the land, we have intact grassland. Everything is interrelated. And the bees, the pollination, we're looking at when they bring debris back into the hives, does it contain pesticides? What does it contain? Like, looking at all that, like, they're the full monitor of what's going on in the world. But we have to amp up the research, and that's what we're doing with the Bee Cube. It's amazing. And you know what? If you have any PTSD, any issues, and that's what happened in Slovenia, like when they have firemen at work and they come back and it's been like horrible for them, they send them in a Bee Cube place. And you just hear the humming of the bees for like 20 minutes and you calm right down. It's just amazing. Really? It's like petting a dog, I guess.
Or the purring of a cat. Yeah.
Yes, or a million bees around. But yeah, it's all the new research that's being done through the Bee Cube and artificial insemination of queen bees, because we cannot get them from New Zealand anymore. So yeah, the world is interconnected. It's amazing.
So are we still facing the imminent collapse, the great colony collapse disorder, where we're just gonna eat oats for the rest of our lives? That was the big threat for a while. Like, get used to oats because we're not gonna have any flavor if all the bees die.
Yes, you know what? Year after year after year, we hear like they've lost like this, they lost 50% of their bee population. This have lost so many of their bee population. We have varroa mites that's decimating. And of course, the use of pesticides everywhere. It is concerning. It is.
Okay, so we're not out of the woods yet. Okay, I was hoping.
No.
Dang
no,
it.
we can still go extinct, but we're not going to look at that timeline for now. We're just going to try not to go on that timeline.
I like that. Stay clear of that timeline. Well, I appreciate you stopping by and talking with us on All Beings Considered, Doctor. Larrea, do you have anything else? Any final questions? Like my bee question? I had to ask the bee question. Sorry.
I guess to leave on a high note is just what gives you hope right now relating to either veterinary medicine or animal welfare, or anything else you're working on.
So what gives me hope is actually we all know citizens that the world is in chaos right now. Like, it's hard not to notice, like, everything is in chaos. Mm-hmm. I'm celebrating it right now because it all needs to crumble. Like, there's so many things that needs to be fixed. And it's like, okay, finally, we're not at the Band-Aid phase anymore. We have a chance to rebuild something way better. And that's what is giving, and like in all, like whether in veterinary medicine, and that's why to me, veterinary medicine is too slow. So the pet owners or pet guardians will have to move faster. But we have a chance to rebuild better systems because the systems are crumbling. And I find that exciting. Like the bee cube and working with bees, we're rebuilding better systems and not putting Band-Aids on the old one. I'm done looking at old systems that are not working. I've lived through those for like 30 years. So it's kind of fun to build something new. So that's what gives me hope. It's a building phase.
Beautiful.
I feel like we could apply that to a lot of things right now in a chaotic world, right? We don't have a Department of Education in this country anymore,
Yes.
so
It'll get better. It'll get better.
Yes. Yeah, that's what they say. I hope you're right. From your lips to God's ears, Doctor. I hope you're right. And but I'll take your optimism. You've inspired me to be optimistic today, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. Before we let you go, do you have anything else you want to share or projects you want to make people aware of?
No, I'm really excited that there's a program like Cures that people can tap into, and animal welfare, whether we like it or not, will be on the agenda. We have to go there. We cannot keep doing what we've been doing for the last, like industrial farming has happened in the last 3-4 decades, really. Like it started when I was in vet school. That's a dead end road. And again, those systems are collapsing, and it's up to us now to propose better and new systems, and yeah, keep going. It's good.
Awesome.
We need to build
back better. All right. Well, thank you so much, Doctor.
There's a problem with that saying, though.
Yeah, I know. It just string to mind, like with the alliteration. We're big on alliteration in this in politics here, so we got.
Okay.
I'll talk to you. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you again soon, I hope.
Thank you very much.
Stick around, Larrea, please. I've got a question from the audience I'd love you to help me out with. Well, that was inspiring. I'm excited about that. I'm with her on that. With the chaotic world, we might be able to build something new and awesome. We had one said, please tell us how does rabies work, and then came back and said, please respond. So we have an audience member that wants you to explain how rabies works.
Okay, I did see Crystal was going to respond to that. Did she not?
No, she just said, great show, guys. Greetings from Montgomery, Alabama. I didn't see. No, Crystal was me. That was me responding to her.
Oh, that's you. Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, when I respond, it responds on all channels, and it says Crystal there. But no, but
fine.
But you're in vet med. You're
Do we ever talk about rabies? We sure do. So
well, I mean,
rabies,
I know raccoons give it to cows. I know that happens.
So most mammals are capable of contracting and spreading rabies, and I say most because there's one really cool exception, which is the opossum.
The possum can't get it. Yeah, they're immune.
And it's because their body temperature is lower than pretty much all the other mammals.
Yeah.
And rabies doesn't like it, which is super cool.
I share that fact all the time with people because they're so afraid of possums because they look scary at night. But they don't have rabies. They cannot get it. I think it's cool.
I think it's super cool.
America's only marsupial.
And they don't get rabies. We gotta love them for it.
Yeah, God love them. But so
gotta love them.
So, but I've heard of okay. So I listened to this harrowing tale of someone in upstate New York where they still have rabies problems. A raccoon. They see the raccoon in the street. They're on a hike, walking down the road. The raccoon sees them and charges, bites the lady. They can't get the raccoon off. The raccoon's not giving up. They end up dispatching the poor animal, and then she tries to get the rabies shot, and they're put her off, but it's like 3 days, you're dead. You could die really fast from rabies. So I don't even know how this disease still exists, to be honest. But
how long it takes is thought to be related to the distance wherever the virus entered your body. Is from your brain. So if you get bit on the face, you're going to die a lot faster than if you get bit on your big toe. Because the virus travels, we call it retrograde, which means that it travels from as far away from your brain back towards your brain. So it swims upstream towards your brain. And so the farther you are from it, in theory, the longer it takes to get to your brain. But the way you actually get it, so it's transmitted through through saliva, and then it has to, so then the animal bites, or I guess a human who has rabies could also.
Yeah, it could be like the rage. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be not good. But it bites, and then it gets into the muscle, and in that environment, it replicates, and then it binds to the receptors at the neuromuscular junction, which are your acetylcholine receptors. And these are the receptors that are in charge of making your muscles work. And so it binds to those receptors, and then it travels up the axons into your cell. And then it goes into your central nervous system and eventually reaches the brain. And then once it's in your brain, then it travels and it migrates to your salivary glands. And that's how it is then transmitted to the next species.
Okay, but you say it's transmitted, but there's something there, right? It goes to my salivary glands, and now my brain makes me want to bite people. I don't get that. I don't understand why the raccoon just wakes up. Like, raccoons don't just go out and bite people or cows. Like, what makes them... Why is the virus making the raccoon run after me and bite me to give me the virus? I mean, that's wild, right?
Isn't that super interesting?
Like the virus takes over and knows?
I'm not totally sure how that part works.
It's crazy.
It reaches your brain. It causes an infection in your brain.
Which makes me aggressive.
Yeah, and so it's just causing like general signs, so we have a whole list of veterinarians. We have a whole list of like, if an animal is exhibiting these behaviors, it might be disease A, disease C, disease D. I might have forgotten disease B, or rabies. And you always have to remember to include rabies on there when you get this group of signs of like, disoriented, aggressive, but it's just general signs of your brain not working good.
Not yeah. I mean, Crystal says you've never had a raccoon. Clearly, I mean, I've been around a lot of raccoons. I grew up in cities. There's raccoons.
They're super. Having worked with some raccoons at rehab facilities, they are, if they're not habituated to people, which the whole point of rehabilitating them is to make them not habituated to people so that they no longer have conflict with them.
She says raccoons are bitey, but I mean, cats are bitey too.
I feel like any animal that's not habituated to people,
they're bitey.
It's going to defend itself. It doesn't see you as something friendly. It sees you as a threat, as a predator.
I'm a primate coming. Like, I'm a scary animal, right? Yeah. But okay,
they're going to utilize their defense mechanism, and just like children bite because they haven't learned how to use other defense mechanisms. Like, animals are going to bite too.
True.
It's not their fault.
But the rabies makes them bite. I've seen Old Yeller. That dog was unsafe. He wanted to bite the little kid, and they had to shoot Old Yeller. I mean, and I've seen the 28 Days Later movies, and it's all about people gain of function research on the rabies vaccine that turns people crazy and turns them into zombies eating each other or just biting each other. I think, I don't know if they actually eat people. They just bite people.
Yeah. And I wonder, I don't know this, but I wonder if it, we think of it as, the virus takes over and it causes you to bite because that's how it's transmitted. And
that's what I think.
if evolutionarily it causes encephalitis. So it causes inflammation in your brain. So your frontal cortex is then affected. That's where your personality is kept. It's changing the way you're perceiving your world. You're probably overstimulated because you're already stimulating your nervous system. And so then you are aggressive. A very common display of aggression is biting. And then the virus was transmitting. I would more wonder if that is how that system evolved rather than being like a zombie takeover of the brain causing biting.
Yeah, I don't know. In the movie, I think they get aggressive and scared and they start biting. I think that's kind of what I think what you just described was spot on, actually. Like if you get encephalitis and it starts, your frontal cortex, it's basically like an instant lobotomy, right? Like, except instead of being calm, you're aggressive because you're kind of going into more of an animalistic state. Like, you don't have a personality and you don't have a civilization. You're not a civilized person anymore. You're scared, you're aggressive, so you bite. I think that's and I'm guessing the fact that they're always frothing at their mouth, that must have like that's got to be something too. Like, there's got to be a hunger or something associated with the saliva just dripping out of people's mouths and dogs' mouths when they have it. Like,
or that's where the virus is being transmitted. I don't know. I'll be honest. I know how it gets into the body, how it gets to the brain, but then some of the signs that we see. Also, you don't see like drooling with every case of rabies. You don't see.
Oh, you don't. So if a cow gets rabies, they don't get.
You don't see aggression with every kind of rabies either.
Oh.
There's different phases, and not every organism that gets rabies, not every mammal that gets rabies is going to go through all the phases. They might be more aggressive. There's a phase that they're just very dull, and we see this in large animals more. So you might see them like running around and acting wild, but you also might just see them like being really dull, maybe like wandering, not really knowing where they're going, or just like, being unwell. And so it's not, it causes like general neurologic signs related to like central nervous system, brain inflammation. So it's not the same.
That makes sense though, right? Like if you're dying from a swollen brain, that's like a pretty, a lot of people die of that, right? That's what meningitis is, right? A swollen spinal cord or whatever. So I guess like that's the same kind yeah, I mean, isn't syphilis like that too? You end up getting your brain swollen and going crazy, kind of. Helena Auberg says, always thought of rabies causes fear of water in humans. I had no idea. I don't know. All right, so that was a fun question. Thank you, audience, for asking about rabies.
Yeah,
I like
if you get bit
rabies
by, wild mammals, go get your rabies vaccine. Wash out the cut and go get your rabies vaccine. Back in the day, they used to be scary and multiple shots and shots in the stomach, but that is not the case anymore.
Is it possible to heal rabies without med? I mean, I've heard stories where people die in 3 days. Like, it's not. It's very deadly. It is
considered to be 100% fatal. I think in the literature, there are maybe 1 or 2 documented cases where people didn't die.
Survived it. Ugh.
But I'm just saying that for completeness, but consider rabies to be 100% fatal. And if you are concerned, if you got bit by a rabies carrying species, which could be any mammal out there.
Except for possums.
Except for possums. I would say even if you got bit by a possum, I would still go get a rabies vaccine. Because
who knows? You might get that
one. It's a terrible way to die. It is horrible. It is not treatable. And that's the thing. It's not treatable. You can when you go to the doctor right after you get bit, they will give you a vaccine. And you will probably be able to make antibodies to keep that virus at bay. But once the virus has got to your brain and has started replicating, and once it's in your nervous system, like, there is no treatment. So just go get your rabies vaccine. I've gotten my rabies vaccine. It is not scary. In fact, it is the least painful vaccine that I have ever had.
Really?
Yeah, it didn't make my arm sore at all. Other people say different, but I'm usually
Okay,
super
but let
sensitive
me ask you
to
this
them.
though,
And I'm just
Larrea.
telling you, I'm pro rabies vaccine.
So now you've gotten the vaccine. What happens if you get bit by a raccoon that you think might have been afflicted by the virus? What do you do?
Then I go. So the reason why I am vaccinated is because I, as someone who works with wildlife, I have a higher risk of coming in contact with a rabid animal,
Yeah.
or even a lot of veterinarians have their rabies vaccines, even if they don't work with wildlife. I would still go and get the follow up. So
It's
you're
like a
supposed to
booster.
get vaccine. Yeah. Yeah. And
Okay.
then I have my rabies titers checked every 2 years. And if my titers drop below a certain level, then I get revaccinated.
Okay, so at the end of the day, if I get bit by, if I'm out there and a raccoon bites me, I'm getting a shot, whether or not I'm
Yes.
vaccinated. Okay.
Yes.
Why can't, it's so weird they can't treat it like they can't treat a swollen brain? Like, what do you mean they can't? Can't ibuprofen keep this thing from getting my
Well,
brain too big?
you
And
could
kill me?
probably treat some of the symptoms, but you're not going to, I mean, it's eventually like the way that you confirm rabies to like give you an idea of like what it does, the way that you confirm it, the only way to confirm it is to take a slice of the brain and look at it under a microscope and test it for the virus. I guess it's an RNA. I was going to say DNA, but like the RNA of the virus.
Right. Right.
So,
RNA, yeah.
because like you can see like they call them inclusion bodies. Like you can
Yeah.
see little clump of virus that are in your brain. And so once it's in your brain, it's hard to get medications into the brain.
Oh, that makes sense, right? Because there's no like, there's not like blood coursing through it and everything. That makes sense.
Because
But
you have your blood-brain barrier to keep your
yeah,
brain nice and actually on that, you can treat like bacterial meningitis, but like viral meningitis, you can't
toast.
treat that. And so that's just providing people with supportive care until they are able to get through it. So we have other things.
If they're able to get through it, like meningitis is one of the scariest things to me, and it's shocking how common it is, and I'm terrified of it. Like I have read too many accounts of people dying of meningitis, like because I've read so many novels about people in Africa, like white people going across the Sahara and stuff, and a lot of them get meningitis, and it's really, really bad. It terrifies me.
I mean, pretty much once something is in your nervous system, it's really hard to treat. I mean, that's why people suffer with Lyme disease if they don't treat it right away. Because once the bacteria gets in, and that's a bacteria, and we can usually treat those with antibiotics. But once that gets into your nervous system, it's really hard. So,
or like molds too. Molds that can get past the blood-brain barrier and stuff. People have a really hard time. That's just forever now. You're just gonna have this mold in you. There's nothing you can do about it. It's horrible. Where does it originate? I don't know what you mean by where does it originate. Like wild animals?
I don't know. It is in the U.S. Some final rabies thoughts in the U.S.
Some final rabies thoughts. To close the rabies discussion and
no, I'm actually really passionate about rabies because I love bats. We know bats are carriers of rabies, and I've been a long defender of bats. And to just because they carry rabies, just don't go touching them. But love. Well,
now they got that cotton nose too. There's a lot of things.
The white nose syndrome. Mm-hmm. And bats are really important pollinators.
They are very important animals. And pest control. As the climate changes and mosquitoes become more and more of a problem in places they weren't before, we're going to want bats. You know, they used to import bats to Florida. They used to take Texas bats and put them in Florida so that before air conditioning, because they wanted people to move to Florida.
Yeah.
Anyway, tell me your final thoughts on the rabies.
So in the U.S., it's rabies found in wild animals is the most common. Bats are common, and then as far as terrestrial, so non-flying species, They're, foxes, skunks, raccoons. They kind of alternate state to state. Who is transmitting the most rabies? But those are kind of the animals that you think about. But in other parts of the world, like in Africa and Asia, Southeast Asia, kind of the global South in general, the most common transmitter of rabies is dogs. And so worldwide, canine rabies is responsible for the most deaths. And the majority of deaths from rabies occur in Africa and Asia. And yeah, almost all of them arise from dog bites. So there's a lot of great initiatives working to vaccinate dogs against rabies, because every year rabies kills like 60,000 people worldwide, and about half of those are children.
Yeah, I've read up on
this. That's really sad. And it's something that we have a vaccine for. It's one of those really good examples of where the idea of One Health needs to really take over, because rabies is one of those weird ones, because it's really an animal disease that affects people versus a people disease. And so usually it's like the human ministries of health and stuff that are managing these, but who you really need are veterinarians to be doing the intervention. Veterinarians are the ones who are going to be getting the rabies vaccines to where they need to go, vaccinating those dogs. And so I believe it's a disease that we could eradicate, but it's because our governments are so siloed into their different things. And if we valued animal health more, I think we would be able to save millions of kids from dying from rabies, because we would involve veterinarians in these public health discussions. But that's just my little soapbox in rabies. I'm glad someone asked about it.
Yeah, it's a really important soapbox. I wonder, though, if that's possible while we're keeping animals, slaughter-bound animals and corporate-owned animals that are susceptible to rabies. Like, how could we ever eradicate if we're going to keep tens of thousands, millions, tens of thousands of cows in one place, like in places like South America, where they're not vaccinating those cows and we're not vaccinating our cows against rabies. Like,
but they're not like they're not harboring it. It's like we need to be vaccinating dogs in Africa and Asia, because dogs live in close contact with humans, and that's how people are getting bit. And I mean, we also need to be vaccinating dogs who are more free roaming for other diseases. They can transmit parvo to other animals. They can transmit distemper. Lions get distemper, big cats, wild canids. But I think that's the big reason why it's dogs versus
dogs
like factory farmed animals. They could, but they're not the ones that are like harboring it and I get what you mean. Transmitting it.
I don't know where it goes once it goes into a cow. That's true, right? Does it get into the human population that way? I do know that.
I mean, the cow will die of rabies, and unless someone gets bit by that cow, it's probably not going to transmit it to anybody.
I went down this rabbit hole trying to figure out how many cows died of rabies once, because Dr. Heath and I were talking about it, and I was like I was looking at all the USDA stuff. I spent hours on this, and they've got some data on like neurological deaths, but most of the times they don't even, especially the young cows, they don't even tell you what died. They tell you they died of like whatever calf diarrhea is called. I forget that term, but they don't even tell you.
Diphtheria, no.
It's not diphtheria, but it's basically diphtheria. I forget.
Scours.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they've got numbers on that. It's like 20% of calves. Like, the numbers are remarkable. There's no way it could all be that. So I don't.
It might be that, but related to, like the big reason why calves get diarrhea from all of the different things is because they have like a failure of the passive transfer of the antibodies from the colostrum. So if they're not allowed to nurse off of their moms in the first couple of hours, then they are going to have really shot immune systems, and they're not going to be able to handle the load of the pathogens that they're exposed to in their high density environments. And not to mention, now they're kept individually in calf hutches to,
to try
prevent
to
their mingling, but then they're really stressed because they're alone and they don't have their moms. So
I read a study about, they tried to do a comparative study between the ones that were isolated and the ones that weren't. Well, they were isolated with each other versus the ones that were in individual calf stalls, and they found negligible difference between the death rates. So it's all just
these ones die of sadness-induced stress, and these ones die of being of overcrowding stress. They're stressed no matter what you do to them if you're taking them away from their moms.
So they said that they died the same rate, but the only problem was that the ones in the individual stalls, they could tell more quickly who stopped eating. Like all of a sudden, this one isn't eating. Calf 6974 isn't eating. We got to either euthanize or treat. Whereas if they're all in the same barn, all the calves, and they're also not nursing, right? They can't tell who's eating and who's not. They're not as great at knowing what's what, whose diarrhea is this or whatever, So I don't know. It's the rabies thing makes me wonder if who's dying of rabies when it comes to cows, and how can we eradicate it? Just kind of like malaria. Malaria could be eradicated if it weren't for us holding cows. We could eradicate malaria, but the cows carry malaria. The mosquito bites the cow and it bites the human. It's like, we're never getting rid
I don't know.
of it.
I would be skeptical on, I think maybe free range cattle are probably at higher risk of getting bit by something rabid than cows in factory farms. These rangeland cattle out here in Arizona and New Mexico, they probably have the highest risk because they're also in some of the higher density rabies areas.
Yeah, like in Virginia, we had those, we would see raccoons and other animals, and sometimes the cows would come down with something. When my ex had a cattle ranch, and I spent a lot of time there, and they would, you'd see other critters out there, and they would be executed because they didn't want the disease getting into the cows, right? They considered every animal that came by as the deer as well. Any animal that got near those cows was considered. Anyway, on that bright note, after all of the optimism we had earlier,
I know I could talk about the wildlife agriculture interface endlessly. I don't know. I'm constantly bothered by it.
Well, I'll write down more questions so that next time we have you on the show, I'll have some ready for you. In the meantime, thank you everyone for being here. I appreciate. In Finland, they spread rabies vaccine in pellets spread to forests. I did not know that. Jesus loves me. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
We've done that here too. The pellets.
The pellets. Oh.
I think it's been more experimental. I don't know. I'm not super up on what wildlife management agencies are doing, but I know that has been done here as well.
Finland is a whole country, but it's smaller than most states. So it's in each state does it differently. I think that's the other issue. That's another issue, because each state, when I think rabies, I think of the epidemic in the Northeast, upstate New York and north of that. People die a lot. It's not good. There's been major outbreaks of rabies, and I know each state's different, so I don't know. Thank you all for joining. This has been All Being Considered. We'll see you. We're going to do another show next week, so please stay tuned. Please like and subscribe. Turn the bell on so you'll know when we're doing this show. Thank you, everybody on Twitter. We got a lot of people watching on Twitter today. Thank you, everybody. Please like and repost if you have found anything interesting here. I hope you did. I saw a couple people reposted it on Twitter. X.com. Thanks. I'll see you next time. Larrea, Cottingham, and Skyjack Morgan.